This week we are looking at a brand that I've been really looking forward to reviewing one of their watches, because this watch that we've got today is likely one of the most important British military watches from a brand that I'm guessing some of you have never heard of, and that is Elliott Brown. This particular watch that we're looking at today is the Holton Professional, and this is one that they actually provide to a specialist branch of the British military. They are known for their ruggedized watches, rugged outdoor watches. Thanks to them for sending this watch in for review. But let's flip the camera around, let's go into all of the specifications of this watch, and then let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Elliott Brown was founded by Ian Elliott and Alex Brown, hence the name, and their brand philosophy has been about creating watches that can withstand the elements and have military grade durability. One of their standout models is what we have here, the Holton Professional. This watch was developed specifically for a specialist military branch that needed a watch capable of surviving hostile environments. They don't specifically call this out on their website, but this specialist branch was the SBS, the Special Boat Service. This is an elite special forces unit of the UK Royal Navy. Interestingly, the SBS is based just 25 minutes from Elliott Brown's headquarters in Poole, Dorset. The watch comes in this very cool zipped carrying case, certainly something that you could use to store the watch in and take it with you on your travels. Also included in the box is this very nicely machined screwdriver with a special hex head on it that we'll talk about later as we go into the review. This is the first military issued watch from a British company in over 12 years, and as such the Holton Professional is recognised by the MOD as official military equipment, and even has its own NATO stock number and features the important broad arrow on the dial, and you can see that NATO stock number on the included instructions in the case. If you're a fan of military watches, and British military watches in particular, this might remind you of another iconic watch from a company called CWC, as they also have an SBS diver that is issued to the Special Boat Service. While the CWC watch has a long history of being issued to the SBS, and also had a model, the G10, that was widely issued to the British Army, to me the Holton Professional stands out as an entirely modern watch. Feels to me very much like those specialist Zinn watches. Every element of the Holton Professional feels like it's been purposely designed for harsh conditions, and when developing this watch they conducted rigorous testing for prolonged exposure to water, dust and shock. And probably just to show off about the 200-meter water resistance, they strapped one of these watches to an ROV that descended to nearly 4,000 meters off the Gulf of Mexico. Let's now dive into the specific features of this watch and leave the military aspects there for now. I have a lot of respect for people that served in the armed forces, but I never served myself, so I don't think it would be appropriate for me to remark on how this would be used by somebody that does or has served in the military. When I review watches that are made for the US military, I invite friends on to talk about these aspects, but I don't have anyone who regularly joins me on the live stream who served in any of the UK armed forces. If you did, I would love to hear your view on this watch. On the wrist, the Holton is a larger watch, but I find it surprisingly wearable. Here you can see it on my 7.2 inch wrist. The watch measures 43mm across, excluding the crown, which we can see here at the 4 o'clock position, has a 52mm from lug to lug and a thickness of only 12mm. It does have some heft to it and has a nice substantial feel on the wrist. However, the flatness of the case back and the way that the lugs slope down to hug the wrist balance the case really well. The model I have here features the integrated rubber strap, but the watch is also available on a metal bracelet or on a NATO strap. It has fixed lugs, and that's where that nicely machined screwdriver comes in, because that's how you remove this bar. I particularly like this rubber strap. It's comfortable on the wrist and it has this extra piece on the end to allow the keeper to secure the tail of the strap. Turning to the bezel now, this is a unidirectional diver's bezel and also has a hardness coating up to 12,000 Vickers. This is also finished in the same matte PVD coating that the case has. Bezel has a very satisfying click, although it's not the quietest out there. The hobnail pattern apparently has been specifically designed to ensure the bezel can't be accidentally turned, whilst offering precision and reliability while using it with wet gloved hands. The case, as you'd expect, is crafted from 316L stainless steel with a gunmetal PVD finish. The case, interestingly, has been treated with an anti-fingerprint coating. As you can see here in some of the shots, it does a good job of repelling my fingerprints, because typically gunmetal coated watches are an absolute bugger for showing fingerprints on. One of the very interesting things as well about the PVD coating is they've applied it at 0.8 microns thick, which apparently is twice the industry standard. So you should get a lot more longevity out of this PVD coating. It should stay looking like this for quite a while. If we move around to the case back now, you'll see that it is attached with hex screws. Now, annoyingly, it's not the same hex screws that's used to attach the integrated rubber strap here, so you can't use the screwdriver as far as I can tell. The case back is bolted down using hex bolts to create a compression and tension for the shock absorb system inside that secure the movement, and the case is also bolted down to ensure that the Elliott Brown logo is perfectly orientated to the top. Moving back round to the front, here at the 4 o'clock position, we can see that screw down crown, which apparently is triple sealed for maximum protection against the elements. When I first saw the crown, I thought it looked a bit small, but I've so far had no issues unscrewing it, although I do feel like it could be a little bit taller, although I imagine it's designed like this so it doesn't get easily knocked. The dial has a very familiar military look with clear numbers at the 12, 3, 6 and 9. Interestingly, this font was designed and trademarked by Elliott Brown. The rest of the markings on the dial were designed with inspiration from military dive watches designed in the 1970s. The dial also features the broad arrow or crow's foot, and at the 4:30 position we have the date. The date is a nice addition, although it's certainly not the largest date window that we've ever seen on the channel. The white on black still allows you to see the date, but certainly takes my eyes a second or two to hone into it and draw it into focus. But as you know, I'm a big fan of the date, so I'm certainly glad that it's been included here. We also have on the rehaul a 24-hour markings, shows you the corresponding military time as well. The hands have that familiar military look to them, with a short sword style hour hand with a longer slender minute hand that thankfully goes all the way to the minute track here on the outside of the dial. Interestingly, the main body of the second hand is a similar colour to that of the dial and can be invisible at times, but the amber painted tip with the C3 filled arrowhead really draws your focus, and I really like that look, the semi-invisible look to the second hand. As you've noticed, this is the quartz version of this watch, so the hand does hit every marking, I would say, for about the first 45 seconds of the dial. Then for the final 15 seconds, the hand slips slightly and lands just fractionally before the marking, but I can't imagine that this will bother anyone. I would still consider this second hand to be very precise with hitting the markers. Of course, one of the important features of this watch is that it has to be visible in low lighting conditions, and as such, Elliott Brown have used C3 Super Luminova, but I don't feel it's applied evenly across all of the elements of the watch. The bezel and hands are very vibrant in the dark, but I think the application on the dial markings could be thicker. These markings fade a lot faster than the hands on the dial. I am cautious here pointing this out because this might be intentional, with more of a muted lume design to avoid drawing any unwanted attention to the watch during nighttime reconnaissance. The watch is fitted with a 2.8mm sapphire crystal with an anti-reflective coating. I've included some outdoor shots here, so perhaps you can judge for yourself whether that's worked or not. The coating is applied to the inner surface of the sapphire crystal. As with other elements of this watch that have gone through extreme testing, Elliott Brown have also put this sapphire crystal through a test of its own, and they've used a 17mm ball bearing dropped from 1/2 meter straight onto the sapphire crystal to make sure it doesn't shatter, and that's how these sapphire crystals pass their quality control. This version of the watch is powered powered by the Swiss Ronda Caliber 715 movement. We don't have anything fancy like solar charging on this, however it does have a 3-year battery life. And I'm not sure whether this watch has to go back to Elliott Brown to have the battery changed, or whether you do have to buy a specialist screwdriver to do it yourself. Because we have a closed case back, unfortunately I can't show you this, but the movement is housed within a proprietary shock protection system that Elliott Brown have designed. This consists of a steel housing suspended in an elastomer shock absorber, so again should really protect the watch from heavy impact. This may be a good time to mention that these watches are also available in an automatic version. One of the very nice things about the Elliott Brown line of watches is a lot of their models include both automatic and quartz variants. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm guessing this quartz version of the Holton is the one that is issued to the SBS. Before we finish, I think it's cool that beyond their regular collections, Elliott Brown also have a passion for special projects, often collaborating on limited edition models that support charities, and they also do squadron specific orders as well. I've really enjoyed reviewing this watch. This is a truly rugged watch that has been designed for purpose, and it's really cool to see that coming from a British brand. And I think this watch in particular is very reasonably priced. So big thanks to Elliott Brown for sending this watch in for review. So what did you think of the watch? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below, and hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you want to get involved in the conversation live, why don't you join us for our panel show on a Sunday, the Sunday Social? Ask your questions live, give your opinions on some of the watches that I've been reviewing this week. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Casual Watch Reviews.